I'm James Helder. Welcome to Full Court Football 24. I'm in O'Shea today in Manchester. I'm quite privileged to be joined by Arsenal and Everton legend, none other than Super Kevin Campbell. It's great to get you on the channel, mate.
It's nice to be here. I look forward to it, and I can't wait to start.
I've got to say, I've been a big fan of yours for many, many years. I feel like it's taken 30 years to get a chance to meet you in person.
Yeah, well, as talking before, I'm sure you kind of met me, or were down to meet me back in the day, back in South London, but it's nice to meet you.
Indeed. I want to go right back into memory lane now. I want to talk about the days before you signed for Arsenal, before coming through the youth team, your grassroots football. Can you sort of tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, well, when I was young, my dad and my uncle took me to Sunday League side called Arnside, and the manager there was worked with my uncle. It was around the Walworth Road, Bermondsey area, so it was Millwall territory. And what great times I had playing for Arnside. Superb little side. You know, we won some bits and got far. But that was really my first connection with a team, because I was good playing for my primary school and stuff like that, and playing in the area of Brixton. But to actually step out of that mantle and start getting recognised on the Sunday League circuit at the age of probably eight or nine was really important. So, you know, you start making a name for yourself then.
How did the conversation come about that Arsenal were interested in signing you? They were looking at you. How did that develop?
Well, it was a Arsenal scout came to watch us at secondary school at the time, called Fred Ricketts. We're 11-year-old, first years. And he came to a game and he spotted me and he said, I was an Arsenal fan, but my first game I ever went to was 1977. And he came and said, you know, I'm an Arsenal scout, you know, would you like to come and train at Arsenal? So you can imagine the smile on my face. I was like buzzing about it. I tried to play it cool, but he knew, you know, he'd got to me. And I said, yeah, I'd love to come to train at Arsenal. But I was training at Millwall, Charlton, Chelsea and all that as well. So, you know, it was, you couldn't sign for the clubs back then until you were 12 years old. So you can go and train around and see where you fit. But as soon as Arsenal were, I knew Arsenal were interested. It was like, yeah, that was my number one.
What was the first impression when you went to the training ground as sort of a trialist, if you like, or what was that feeling like, that nervousness? Can you explain that to us?
Well, it's crazy because, you know, we used to meet at Highbury as kids, and they used to take you out to London Colney. And at the time, the first team were actually doing pre-season training. And in between training sessions, we'd be playing our games. And it's weird, at London Colney, you used to have to be able to go through the hedges. And when you go through the hedges, the first team will be waiting there, and they'll be giving you high fives and saying, you know, make sure you get back, they'll look at your number, make sure you bang some goals in and that. And you can imagine, you know, these are the Arsenal first team. Guys who I couldn't even afford to get in to watch them. We had to wait till not in the North Bank. So it was amazing, and, you know, everybody just seemed so good. Everybody seemed so calm. Everybody was just nice. And it made me love Arsenal even more.
You must have been buzzing from going from a fan, as you said, someone who used to sneak into the North Bank with your mates, to then having the opportunity to play to represent Arsenal and be around these players. It must have been a dream come true for a young Kevin Campbell. Yeah,
it's a bit cliched, that dream come true thing, but it really was. It was my dreams to be able to play for Arsenal at any level. To say that I've done it, and even as a kid, going there and witnessing and seeing the first team, you know, year in, year out, and as you start progressing through, you know, the coach who trained us on a Tuesday and Thursday was Pat Rice. You know, Pat Rice was captain. You know, I watched the FA Cup finals where he's lifting the cup in the 70s, and you know, special. He was a special guy. He had a special group, but you know, Arsenal always done things correctly, and to know I went to school with Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas was a few years older than me. Michael Thomas had obviously got through and was a apprentice at the time. So, you know, as I started to progress, I started to feel it a lot more. and Pat Rice, started to develop me big time. And Vic Akers, who was the kit man. Vic Akers used to train us as well, who's a very good coach. So having those guys there who have been stalwarts at the club, was meant to be.
Being sort of from a local lad from South London, did a lot of the kids from Lambeth and Wandsworth look up to Michael Thomas? Was he someone that you guys hoped to sort of emulate, if you like?
100%, because it was tough streets back then. There was a lot of racism going on back then, and there was the SARS and the riots and all that kind of thing. It was a tough place to grow up. But anybody worth their salt, you try and cling on to somebody who's done good, who you can kind of look at to elevate you. And Michael Thomas was always that guy. He'd got into the England setup as a kid at school, and one of the teachers, Brian Jonko, who was amazing to Michael, was amazing to me as well. He really took Michael under his wing and nurtured him right. Michael was from a one-parent family, and I was from a one-parent family, although my dad was around, but it was one parent. My parents had divorced. And to know somebody's actually looking out for you and wanting you to do better, so that give you a lift, that give you a shot in the arm to actually do good and to try and make it out.
You was absolutely prolific for the Arsenal youth team. You were an absolute monster for them, winning the FA Youth Cup as well, and I think scoring 59 goals in one season.
It was 63 actually, but it's noted as 59. But that was youth team reserves and all that kind of thing. I mean, Pat Rice, we've done so much extra work behind the scenes, because Pat Rice's motto was, my job is to get you to the next level. Now, if you haven't got the talent, fail by not having the talent, not the application. So Pat Rice used to work us very hard, and that became a part of your life. So you worked hard, and good things come when you work hard. And because the process isn't easy. But if you know you've got to do the process, then you're going to achieve. And that's what we've done. A lot of those guys in the youth team went on to be pros. Some not at Arsenal, because everyone can't make it at Arsenal. But a few came through at Arsenal, a few made it at other clubs, because that process was inbuilt in us to be able to work.
When was the first time you met George Graham? Can you rekindle that memory, the first time he spoke to you or the first time he spoke to the group?
I remember it like as if it was 10 minutes ago. It was, he'd just taken over and we were at the training ground, and we were YTS, which is like an apprentice. So we were sat on the floor, on the grass. Then you had the reserves, which was Michael Thomas, Dave Rocastle, Tony Adams, all those guys. Adams was kind of breaking through at the time. You got Caesars and Paul Merson and all that kind of thing, youth teams and all that, reserves. And then at the back you had your Charlie Nicholases, your Viv Andersons, Tommy Caton, David O'Leary's, Tony Wargott, Kenny Sanson, Graham Ricks. You had all those kind of players who were like big international players behind. And I'll never forget, he had his notes rolled up in his hand, and he was just, talking about who's the best club right now. The best club is Liverpool. So they've got a target on their back. That's who we've got to go for. And he's not going to take he's not going to cut any corners. It's only hard work's going to get us there, to be able to challenge them. But if you're good enough, you're going to get a chance. So he said, forget all those guys on the back in the seats. He looked at all the reserves, and he looked at all the youth team, and he specifically looked at me and he says, if you're good enough, you will get your chance. So, have that in your mind, have that work ethic. And I remember it was yesterday. It still, gets me going now, because that was how the club actually turned its fortunes around. Because at the time, Arsenal were wallowing a little bit. George Graham came in to make a difference, and boy, did he make a difference. Him and Theo Foley as a duo were excellent.
How important was it for him to win that Littlewoods trophy so early on in his management career for Arsenal, to get off to the right start, to instill that winning mentality into the side?
I think it's really important. Arsenal have obviously known to challenge, but they were going through a bit of a sticky time. And to be able to get a trophy on the side cements everything that he's doing, because the way everybody worked, the way he handled it, the way he was tough with the players, it was all about winning. And he wouldn't take nothing less than 100% to win. So to win your first trophy, you beat Liverpool in the final. Nobody wins when Ian Rush scores, and Charlie Nicholas got a couple in the final. And to win at Wembley was, I mean, I was a youth team player at the time, and it was amazing. You know, Wembley is my first time at Wembley, that was. And to win the cup and to see the elation and adulation that the Arsenal players got, to see the happiness of the fans, it just cemented everything more for me. I've got to work hard. I've got to get in that first team. That was it.
The following season, Arsenal again, you were put out on loan to Leyton Orient. Hit the ground running, scored some very important goals for Leyton Orient. They won promotion as well that year, and no doubt you played a key in that. I think you scored 9 goals for Leyton Orient.
I was there. I went to because that's when you could only go on loan for 3 months. So I was there for 3 months, and I came back to Arsenal. But obviously they'd done really well, and they got to the playoff final. And I'll never forget. That was the first year of the playoffs. And I went to Brisbane Road, and I was so proud of Leyton Orient. Leyton Orient are still in my heart because, I had such a fantastic time at the club. Frank Clark was manager, and there were some fantastic players there. Really was. But that was like a very important stepping stone for my career, being at Leyton Orient.
Now, it's at that time as well, the 88-89 season, that was such intense for Arsenal fans. From an Arsenal fan and an Arsenal player being around it that year, can you give me some information on it?
Well, the crazy thing about it was, normally what happens is the team go up the day before. But what George Graham said is, look, we don't want to be in and around Liverpool because, they know how to play the mind games.
This was coming into the last game of the season, the penultimate match of the season.
No, the last game, not penultimate, it's the last game. Because we were streets ahead at the time, and that was the year of Hillsborough. Obviously, that tragic thing happened and event happened. And it kind of knocked us and it galvanised Liverpool. And Liverpool ended up being top of the league by 2 points or whatever it was.
After coming back, I think 12 points, maybe.
Yeah, they made up 12 points. We were messing up at home, and games that we should have been winning at a canter. That's the hard part, getting across the line. Very difficult. We couldn't get across the line. We seemed to fluff our lines, but we're in it with a chance. And George Graham didn't want to give them any initiative. He said, right, what we're going to do, we're going to go up on the Friday morning. And it's a Friday evening game. So, not a lot of people know this. Dave Rocastle, I'm from Brixton. Dave Rocastle is South London boy, but Dave Rocastle's girlfriend at the time, Janet, lived in Brixton. So Dave Rocastle said, listen, I'll pick you up at Brixton Town at 5 o'clock in the morning. So there I am at Brixton Town, 5 to 5. 5 o'clock comes Rocky, picks me up. We go to Highbury, park the car, and it's me, Rocky, Tony Donnelly, the kit man, and Big Frank, the driver. We're loading all the skips onto the bus. Load all the skips onto the bus. We get up to London Colney. Rodders, all the boys are there. Full squad. I mean, there's from the youth team who are just transitioning, like we're 18, 19. Myself, Alan Miller, David Hillier, Stephen Morrow, from that team. Obviously, we haven't played a game, but we've trained with the team. We've been in and around it for such a long time now. So we travel up to Liverpool, and we get to the hotel, have a bite to eat. Lads get their head down, if you could, because it's, the game. Liverpudlians are giving us plenty of stick, you could imagine, the Scouse Reds. And the Blues are like, come on, please do us a favour. So that connection to Everton as well for me was it was so profound. So anyway, we got to the team meeting, and George Graham called it. He said, look, I don't even mind if you're 0-0 at half-time. He said, as long as they're not ahead, I don't mind at all. But what we can do is we'll score one early second half, and even if it's 1-0 with 15 minutes to go, that will put major pressure on them. It's like he knew. And got to the ground, obviously, plenty of banter going on the way with fans. And 89, it was amazing because the lads who weren't playing, we're in the dressing room, and then obviously we had to leave before, you know, the final details got done. We got led around the pitch, and we sat in the Arsenal fans. We were sat with the Arsenal fans in the Annie Road end.
That's incredible.
So it was amazing. We're watching the game with the Arsenal fans.
You can't expect that now, can you? To see that. The players going in with a...
It will never happen now. It will never happen now. But we're with the Arsenal, and I could see all the boys. I could see all the boys who have been to football. My mate, Big Mitch, who used to sell the programmes on the corner. I could see Denton at the front. I could see all the boys. Honestly, Robert, I could see them all down there. And it was like, wow. I was sat beside Paul Davis. So there was a load of us in a line, and some of us dotted all over the place. Obviously, 0-0 at half-time. Alan Smith scored. And then we got led out because it was like 5 minutes to go, including injury time. We got led to the side of the pitch. What happened from there was we're sat kind of right by the dugout, kind of kneeling down. And we're gone into injury time. And Steve McMahon's giving it that 1 minute. 1 minute hit the corners. But obviously Barnsley was so good, he thought, right, I can dribble through. Got robbed, ball got to Lukic, and then it's that famous words, isn't it? Lukic to Dixon, Dixon to Smith, Smith, Thomas. Because Thomas missed the chance probably about 10 minutes before that, and everyone was like, oh, that's the chance. But Tomo got through, and the pride that I felt when Tomo went through and put it in, and the footage goes, you could actually see feet. A lot of people won't see what happens, but you could probably see feet running on. That was the police grabbing me. I'd lost it. I was about to run on the pitch, and the police grabbed me, and the coaching staff said, no, he's with us. He's because I weren't in the Arsenal blazer at the time. You know, it was just a under 18, under 19 player. So we got stopped, and but it was just like what a moment. What a moment for everybody. It's like time stood still. But I've got to give Liverpool credit. You know, that boot room staff, the fans clapped, the team. You know, anybody who comes there and beats us 2-0, you know, deserves it. The likes of Roy Evans and Ronnie Moran and all those guys came into our dressing room after. You know, it was pandemonium in the dressing room. They came in, brought their crates of champagne and were saying, you know, fair play to you guys. You know, you come here, you know, but we're coming back for you next season. You know, that type of thing. There were good sports, and there was a big mutual respect between Arsenal, and there still is mutual respect between Arsenal and Liverpool.
I want to touch on making your debut against Everton in '88. Again, you seem to have this link with Everton, this lineage.
I know.
Was it bizarre for you, thinking back on it, to make your debut for Arsenal against Everton?
Well, people got to remember, when I was young, Everton were a force, and the team they had were up there challenging Liverpool. You know, they were that good. And it was the likes of Neville Southall in goal. Yes. You know, Gary Stephen, you had Kevin Ratcliffe, you had Mountfield, you had Van den Hauwe, you had Kevin Sheedy, Peter Reid, Paul Bracewell, Trevor Stephen, and up front you had Graham Sharp and Adrian Heath, Inchy. Kevin Richardson was at that club, who came to be a good stalwart at Arsenal as well, really good player. You know, they had some fantastic players, Everton. So to make my debut at Goodison Park was immense. And I remember Tony Donnelly wouldn't even give me a first-team tracksuit to wear. So I had this big feeler number on, red. It was red. And I'm, you know, walking around Liverpool for our walks and stuff. And I've got this big red feeler tracksuit on, but, you know, he said, you haven't earned it yet, which is fair enough. You know, I've got to earn it. And I was on the bench. I came on for 12 minutes, and I done pretty well. And there were some headlines in the Sunday paper about, you know, Arsenal have got another one coming off the production line, which was nice. Made mum and dad very proud. But that affinity with Everton, you know, that after the game and getting the pink and the paper with all the results in and stuff like that, there was just an authenticity about it, Goodison Park, and that roar and that crowd. You know, little did I know, you know, it would get to play a big part in my life.
As well as the loan spells at Leyton Orient, you also had loan spells at Leicester City. Mm-hmm. Was it nice for you as a young player to go out and get that experience before being under the full pressure, spotlight and glare that comes with playing for Arsenal?
Well, as George Graham said, I was too good for the reserves very quickly, probably at under 18. So the quicker I could get out on loan, and he said there's 4 teams, and he said there's Leyton Orient. I said, yeah, I'll go there. I just didn't want him to.
You love Leyton Orient, didn't you?
I do love Leyton Orient. And then there was the next season. He said, I want you to go on loan. I want you to go to equivalent to the Championship, which is Division 2. Leicester. David Pleat was manager at the time. They had a good side. They were second bottom when I went there as well. So it was all about character. And Gary McAllister played there, and Ali Mocklin, and Steve Walsh, and some really good players. Paul Kitson, and those guys were coming through the ranks. Tommy Wright, very, very good side at the time. So Paul Moran was on loan there from Spurs. So it was funny. We joined at the same time, and it was me and Paul Moran up front for Leicester, and we'd done pretty well. It was a fantastic stepping stone for me because it was, bigger crowds and a lot more pressure, playing against big sides. Leeds at the time were down there at the time. Vinnie Jones played for Leeds and stuff like that. So it was really good. Some good sides were in the Div 2 then.
I'd like to talk a little bit about the 1990-91 season. Such a great year for Arsenal. I remember you guys, as a fan, beating a lot of teams, scoring 4 goals in a lot of matches. I think you smashed Aston Villa 4-0. You beat Chelsea 4-1. I think you beat Liverpool 2-0 away as well that season. And some great, great results. The team only lost once that year. Talk me through it from what was it like being inside as a player?
I think after everything George Graham was implementing at the team, the balance seemed to be right in that squad. With the right balance of youth and experience. Even the youngsters had were getting some good experience of playing games. I'd been on loan twice, so I had some good experience, and I was hungry. That's what we were. We were hungry. The team was hungry to win. We'd won the title, then lost it to Liverpool. So George Graham pushed us hard that pre-season. I remember, and he said, I want that title. I want that title, and that's what we set out to do. The camaraderie in the camp was amazing, really was. George Graham, he didn't believe in cliques, and he said, look, I don't mind you all going out. He said, but you all go out. I don't want any cliques. 8 of you go and 20 of you stay. You all go out as 28 or 30 of you, and that's what we did. And we got into a little bit of trouble at times.
30-handed going out in some London sort of places.
Yeah, best places, but we're spenders, we're all right. But it was about the togetherness. It was about the camaraderie, and it was such a fantastic time to be an Arsenal player. The development of that squad, we got better every week. We tended to get better every week, and
coined the phrase 1-0 to the Arsenal that season, really.
Yeah, look, we tended to win games a lot 1-0. When the chips were down, we knew we could stand up. If we got a goal up, we knew through the way we were drilled that the other team probably wouldn't stand a chance of getting back in the game. Well, we definitely weren't going to lose the game, that's for sure. So, because very rarely we concede more than 1 goal. So that gives you an inner belief, that gives you a toughness. We were mentally tough anyway, but that gives you such a fantastic belief system to go on and do well. And I think halfway through that season, I was on the bench in the leading up. And halfway through that season, I got into the first team and I started playing up front with Mansell and Smith. And we forged a really good partnership. And we went on from strength to strength. David Hillier got into the team as well. It was my youth team pal. We'd played together since we were like 6, 7 years old, from South London boys. And he was Blackheath. So, it was such an amazing time for us. And obviously playing with your mates, there was probably 10 lads who had come through the ranks at Arsenal. How many teams could say 10 of the first team squad had come through the ranks? So Arsenal had the blueprint right at the time. Looking back, it will never get repeated, that for Arsenal. That was just such a unique time. But again, losing only 1 game, and it was to Chelsea as well. It was a London derby, losing to Chelsea 2-1, where we probably could have got something out of the game. we would have been the Invincibles, but we were just missed the Invincibles. But luckily enough, Arsenal were the only team to do it later on.
What was it like playing up front with Paul Merson and Alan Smith? They seem to have a great sort of link up and a great bond before you got in the side. And once you got in the team, you seemed to really gel with them. What was it like from your point of view?
I think a lot of the time I'd played with the guys in training, because George Graham was a stickler for drilling you in training and seeing permutations play. And I mean, there were some times where I wouldn't even be on the bench, but would have done work in training. And when I'm watching the way the guys played on a Saturday, you know, I could remember, I could see the move, I could see where Alan Smith's going, I could see where Mercy's going. So that just made it like clockwork. When I got in, I knew exactly what the guys were going to do. Merce was such a fantastic player. He had such good vision, and he was playing from the left-hand side. So when Merce got the ball on his right foot, you knew you could make a run because Merce will find you. Alan Smith was the ultimate target man. I learned so much from Alan Smith playing with him. And, you know, he was just an ultimate old-school centre-forward. Good with his back to goal, good finisher, good in the box, and he was fantastic at bringing people into play. All I had to make sure was I hunt the space. I really made sure I had to make sure I hunt the space. And it was on the right, the South London Brazilian, Rocky. So I couldn't fail, could I?
It's at that point where George Graham's pretty much assembled that famous back five, if you like, that stalwart of the Arsenal team for years and years to come. Did you know at that time that those players would dominate that defence for years to come?
Yeah, I've got all the bruises. I've got all the scars from them. Trust me, I've got them all. As a youth team player, what George Graham used to do, he used to take the back four probably twice a week. And as the youth team, we used to play, believe it or not, John Lukic, obviously, at the time was in goal. And you had the back four. And he would play 11 against those 5. And we couldn't score. And then what he would do, he would progress it like coaches do. He would put one midfielder in as a screen. Then he'll put 2 midfielders in as a screen. And he'll put more players. He'll put 12 players, 13 players on the pitch just to see if we could unhinge them. But he drilled them that well that they had their distances right, they had their cores right, they had the movements right. And it wasn't just overnight. It was week in, week out, day in, day out. They got it right. They got it right. They got it right. So, and when you watch them on a Saturday, and you're seeing what they're doing, and you're seeing other teams don't know how to beat it. You know, the arm used to go up and they're offside, and you know, every time they put the arm up, the linesman puts his flag up, but they were just so drilled at it, and then, you know, they got better at it and better at it and better at it, and then it was just like clockwork. Once it's like clockwork, they knew when to shift up, they knew when to drop, they knew exactly what to do. So it really was an immense time for them. And you could see, obviously, as a youth team player, and then I started to progress how good they were and how good they could be, because, you know, they were really doing a lot of good performances in the league.
It's about this time that a club legend is signed, or born, if you like, the arrival of Ian Wright into Arsenal. Great friend of yours and someone I know you've got a great lot of love for. What was the first time you met Ian Wright like?
Well, knew Ian Wright from obviously when he was at Crystal Palace. He used to play Sunday League. Heard the name but didn't really know him. But obviously he came through late. So when he got a chance at Crystal Palace and was doing bits at Crystal Palace, Andy Gray was at Crystal Palace. He used to live around the corner from me. He was one of the guys I looked up to because I used to be pals with his brother, Nicky. And Andy was one of my idols at the time because he was making it to be a pro. So he used to be really good to me, so he was there. So whenever we played him, it was like a South London thing, you know. So we used to give them a slap now and again, actually quite a bit. And we used to say to Ray, Rocky used to say it mostly, and then we just used to jump on it. Right, what are you messing about here for? You need to come to the good side.